Welcome to Health, Wealth, and Happiness, a fast-paced, informative hour-long program dealing with physical, emotional, and mental health issues, consumer information, and money management, as well as the arts, theater, travel, entertainment, social, and civic events. Brought to you by the University of South Carolina School of Medicine Specialty Clinics, the Institute for Partnerships to Eliminate Health Disparities, the Newberry Opera House, the South Carolina Philharmonic, supplements manufacturer A.J. Lanigan, Leon Jones Insurance, and the Mitchell House and Gardens. And now, here's the host of Health, Wealth, and Happiness, Gary Posick.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Health, Wealth, and Happiness. If you hear a little rasp in my voice, I have picked up a early fall cold, but will struggle through as best I can. Here's a rundown of today's program. My first guest joins us via the phone, as he does the fourth Wednesday of the month. He's Rusty Bresset, who is the owner of ScoreNavigator.com, a sponsor of this program. And today we're going to talk about the importance of an accurate credit history report and what happens when it's not. From 1:30 to 1:45 each Wednesday, Don Schaefer, a travel expert, joins us with his some 40 years in the field. And today he's going to talk about a 5-star premium river cruise in Europe for half price this fall, plus a super bargain, a round-trip airfare to New York City out of Charlotte for $195. Man, you can't beat that. And a word to the wise about holiday airfares. Hard to believe 3 months from today is Christmas, but getting the best airfare you're going to get for the holidays, you have a window between now and about mid-October, so less than 3 weeks. My final guest of the day will be Nanette Butler, who is vice chair of the Irmo Okra Strut, which will take place Friday and Saturday of this weekend. So I hope you'll stay tuned for the entire program, and welcome back, Rusty Bresset, as we talk about credit. And boy, no doubt about the fact, even since you've been in the business, Rusty, it has changed greatly. It used to be, if you paid your bills on time and didn't overextend yourself, well, your credit score pretty much spoke for itself. But boy, times have changed.
Well, they have, Gary. First, I want to, if you don't mind, Gary, I'm traveling and I'm up here in Canada speaking today, and I just wanted to say hello to my wife who's listening, Janet, and the children, and I'll be home soon. The trend has, thank you, Gary, the trend has changed. You know, back in the old days when data was being reported to the credit bureau, the creditors or the potential creditors were looking at how many good accounts you had versus how many negative accounts you may have had. And even though the good accounts were there and the data was incorrect, it didn't really matter because credit scoring didn't take, it wasn't into the play.
And now
today, go ahead.
Now today, that 3-digit number affects where you live, what you drive, where you work, the kind of insurance you have. It's more invasive than I think a lot of people realize. And here's the irony of it. The 3 major credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, all advertise via email on a weekly basis. Send in for your credit report. And you know, and I know, and I think the world knows, you can do that, but it is riddled with inaccuracies.
It is, and unfortunately, that is a way that they make their a lot of their income is by selling the reports, but it's also selling the score, because people can go to annualcreditreports.com and get 1 free report a year. In some states, like in Georgia, you can get 2. So you can get a free report, but the emphasis is now being put on to the credit score. And we've had this conversation, Gary, and we're going to keep talking about it each time, is the score is really irrelevant. It's the credit data. So the credit bureaus can't actually go on. And if I was a credit bureau, Gary, and I said to you, I said, hey, listen, I want you to buy my report and my score, but I can tell you we know that not all the information on there is accurate. And we can also tell you, so if it's not accurate, then obviously the score's not accurate. Would you buy that report?
Heavens no. And the other thing that you've taught me since you've been on this show is the number that is sent me, not only is it not accurate, it isn't necessarily the same number that the bank or other creditors are going to get. Explain that to this audience, if you would, please.
It's because there are so many different scores that could be sold. For instance, here in Canada, the mortgage industry pulls a report that gives a certain score. So when a consumer is applying for credit, they go in and they get, the mortgage guy sees this score. Now, the bank who makes the final decision, when they pull the same report, they're getting an entirely different score.
How can that be? I mean, it's only me, and how can it be a different score? I mean, isn't it based on my credit record?
It is, but they impose different scores, and so the scores that the consumers are buying through just their own channels, not something that's being pulled when they go to apply for credit, is a higher rate score. It's built on different types of algorithms, and those algorithms are for you to continue to go out and buy those reports. But when you go to apply somewhere, you're going to find out the score's not right. But the problem is, even the scores that the auto industry gets, the mortgage industry gets, the credit card companies get, the lenders get, the score's not correct because the credit data is not correct.
Give us an idea of how much difference there could be in these credit scores.
There's a tremendous amount of difference, and we wrote the program. We call it Point Deduction Technology. We use it at our company, ScoreNavigator.com, which provides a report, and we're going to tell you, our report's inaccurate too, because it's the data that we get from the credit bureau. The difference is, we're going to show you where those errors probably occur, and then we assign a number to show you how many points you're losing. And so with our experience and our analyzation and the software we have, we know 100% of credit reports are incorrect. And to answer your question, on your positive credit, it has more impact or as much the negative credit does. And so when you go in and you may have 5 good positive credit accounts, but you may be losing as much as 100 points because the information's not being reported correctly.
And here's the deal. It's not just, here are the gotchas. You let people know, here are the areas that are causing you points, and here's how you can correct it.
Absolutely. What we did was we wrote software that analyzed where we saw a comparison of hundreds of thousands of credit reports, and then there were independent studies that were being done by organizations, and it matched up to the same type of errors. Now, there were other errors that were picked up from these independent companies, but they had no significance on the credit scoring. So we don't highlight things that we know there are errors, but it's meaningless. If they have your name spelled wrong or they have an old address or an old employer, that doesn't affect your credit score. And so we don't highlight that, but we're going to highlight where most of those errors are going to occur on the credit report and show them, like you said, what you can do in order to get it updated properly in order to recover those points.
What's got to make it so very frustrating for we, the buying consumer, is we get a credit score and we think, well, we're loaded for bear. We're okay. We're going to go apply for a new mortgage, or we're going to go apply for a car loan, only to be turned down because, as you've indicated, our score could be 100 points higher than what the lending officer has in his hot little hand. We end up with egg on our face. It looks as if we're trying to pull a fast one. It looks like we're trying to commit a fraud, and we're not.
That's right. And sometimes but the problem that I see, Gary, is that all the blame is being put onto the credit bureaus. They're the ones that store the information. The information comes from the creditors. They come from the collection agencies. They come from the courthouses. And so a lot of times the data, even at the courthouses, isn't correct. It's also matched up. Judgments can, if you have a similar name to people that are in the area, you can have those things attached to you. Well, the credit bureau's not watching what's going on with our credit reports every day. They don't view it. They don't sit there and go, I wonder what's going on with Gary's report today or Rusty's report or anybody else's. And so what happens is when they get their data sent to them, then that data is coming in. It's inaccurate. They have creditors who have downsized in their companies because of the economy. So they don't put much concern to it. And the consumer goes around every day with stuff that's being said about them that's being shared with so many different people behind their backs, and the information isn't correct. It's astounding.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding from what you've said in past shows, there's really no incentive for these credit bureaus to get it right. In other words, it may not be the correct data, but so what? I mean, even if I did correct these things, what difference does it make to the credit bureau?
Oh, it doesn't. It doesn't, because they're going to get paid to have the information reported, whether it's accurate or inaccurate. Everybody concedes that they know that a lot of the data is going to be inaccurate. The problem is this. You're dealing with over 200 million people in the United States alone that have some sort of a credit file. If you've ever applied for credit, you're going to have it there. If anybody's ever looked at you with your social, you're going to have it. And most of the people, if you just even went on an average of 5 credit accounts per person, you're talking about over 1 billion pieces of credit data that has to be maintained and monitored. Well, it's not monitored because there's no facility set up to watch what's going on with our stuff. So what's happened is when there's an error, the burden of proof has been put onto the consumer instead of the creditor. And that's where the biggest problem's been. You're having to defend yourself for things that aren't being reported correctly from wherever source it came from.
And that is a perfect world, that $1 billion worth or billion pieces of data. Now, enter into the real world the number of hackers that hack into your credit information and your personal data and steal your identity. That is another fly in the credit ointment.
Well, that's getting easier and easier, too, because your credit data is being shared. When you go out and you apply for an auto or a mortgage, then though your information is being sold on to, we call them trigger leads. They're being sold to the highest bidders in more than one place. In other words, if you went out and applied for a car today, one car place is not going to get your information. There may be 4,000 of them that get your information. And so your information is being sold for other people to come offer you other products, whether it's even trying to get you to come buy an auto from them. And so your data isn't safe. It's being put out there. But hey, listen, if you're going to sell my stuff, if you're going to say something about me, at least tell the truth. Give me a chance. Don't share bad information.
And it must be so very easy to get information that you think should be sancto-sanct. If I can, this is a little off subject, but it shows you just how vulnerable we are. A week ago, Friday, I got a telephone call from a telemarketer. She said that she was with Subscription Central and was calling to renew my 3-year subscription to Golf Magazine. I said, I've already done that. Well, we had a glitch in our system. You paid by check, didn't you? And I said, I did. She said, just to show you this is not a scam, let me read back your check information, starting, first of all, with the routing number of your bank and then your account number. And by God, Rusty, she did. And it was the routing number on the bottom of my check and my account number. She said, now, I don't have your check number because we're not given that information, but are the numbers that I've just given you, are those the correct numbers? And I said, well, what's your point? She said, well, we want to renew your 3-year subscription for $119.82. And I said, oh, wait a minute. I just renewed my subscription at the beginning of the month, and it wasn't anywhere near that. I think you are scamming me. And I hung up on her. She immediately called back and she said, oh, Mr. Posick, I'm sorry. I should have said $89.82. And she said, if you can just give me that check number. So, Rusty, I made up a fictitious check number, knowing that it wasn't anywhere near where I currently was. And I gave that number out, and I said, but I ain't interested because I've already renewed at a much lower price. I didn't have my checkbook in my hand, but I knew my check number, and I knew my account number, and I'll be doggone, I got off the phone, I went upstairs, I got my checkbook, and I looked, and here was the deal. For Golf Magazine, it cost $10 a year, or I could renew for 3 years for $20. It was like getting a year subscription free, but she was going to charge me, first of all, $119.82, and then called back with $89.29. I immediately picked up the phone and I called my bank and I told them what had happened. I gave them the fictitious number that I had given them on the check, and I said, be on the lookout for it because that check was probably written 4 months ago. So be on the lookout for that check number and see if they try to put it through. Don't you know that on Tuesday I get a call from the bank? Yep, they put it through, and it was for $89.23, and they had my check number. And so they're trying to be a good citizen. I picked up the phone and I called Golf Magazine and told them exactly what happened. And I said, this got to be an inside job because how else would this person have gotten the routing number and my account number? Oh, Mr. Posick, we know there would have been no way in which they could have gotten that from our company. Well, it didn't fall out of the sky, Rusty, but that's right. That's just, and they were polite, but they didn't know anything about it, nor were they concerned about it. Had I not called the bank, now the bank's going to make it good because I called them, gave them all the information, and it's going to have to come out of some account that they have set up. They're going to honor and restore the $89.23 in my account because they've already paid the bill. They've already paid that check. You see.
Well, the problem is, Gary, number one, for the listeners, when people do that, always tell them that you're on another call and you need to get a number and a name so you can call back to that place to find out where they are. Chances are they won't give you a number, or it's going to be some number that you're not going to get anybody on the phone. So you have to be really careful. But one of the things that I talk to people about, Gary, is time. Time is our biggest commodity. We can't get it back. So when you have to sit there and spend time of your day, and you've got a bazillion other things going on, and you have to deal with those type of issues, or you have to deal with your credit issues of things that you get up, like you said earlier, you pay your bills on time, you do what you're supposed to do, and then you expect dividends from that time of paying stuff, not the time that you have to take to investigate it, to find out, to get your statements, to get proof, to do this and to do that based on the data the things they're saying about you.
What scared the bejeebies out of me was what's to prevent this company from using my number again and putting in another check using my account. It just scared me, and I would say there's nothing to keep them from doing that again.
And went for larger amount of money. You're lucky they only went with the number they said that they were going to do. They could have turned around and said, let me just find out if I can grab $1,800 out of that account.
Exactly true. And the other thing that, I'm sure they're relying on the fact that my bank doesn't send me return checks. Does your bank? I mean, do you get the checks that you
no.
that you've written? Hell no, you don't get that. You get an accounting for those checks, but you don't get the physical check returned to you. Banks don't do that anymore, and that's what they're relying upon.
And they rely on smaller amounts, so it kind of blends into whatever else that you're doing, and so you don't catch it.
No, you don't catch it, and so it goes through, and you say, well, it was $89. Well, I'm not. Who has time to screw with that? Well, it was the principle of the thing, you see. And
people have to watch out. I had a trip that I was coming back from Ireland many years ago, and there was flight delays on the connecting flight, and so the airlines put us up at a local hotel. Well, the hotel was paid for through a voucher, but they asked for my credit card for any other incidentals, which there wasn't going to be any, but they required it. So I gave them my credit card. 3 months later, I found out that I had sent 6 people to Nigeria on my credit card because they had given my creded card number out to somebody else, and I bought plane tickets that I didn't know about. And so, I mean, and that was many years ago. Now they're more sophisticated today. So people beware, watch if somebody calls you, verify it, double check it, and then when you get to your credit stuff, because there is so much identity theft, so many things are going on. One of the things that we do have for the consumer in ScoreNavigator.com is once you become a member there, you will get an alert if something brand new appears on your credit or if there's any changes that are being done, so that way you'll know, and then you can report it back to ScoreNavigator, and they'll actually make a phone call and put an alert on it and do what they can do to help you to recover that problem.
It's more than just an inaccurate number. The score does affect you in so many ways, as I stated from the beginning. It affects where you live because of how your score affects whether or not you're going to get a mortgage on a home. It affects whether or not you're going to be able to buy a car. It affects your employment. If you've got a bad credit score, an employer may not employ you. It affects the insurance and the insurance rates you get. This is a big deal. And it's not only that score, as you've said so many times, it's really the data that you get. And you've said you've been in the business 30-some years. You've never, ever seen a credit report that was 100% accurate.
I have never seen a credit report in 32 years that's been completely accurate. I'm in the credit industry, and I have plenty of accounts on my credit file, and I can tell you if I were to look at my report today, I would find errors that are being reported.
Well, and so it's a mess, and the only thing you can hope to do is best manage what you can correct and not worry about the industry, because there's nothing that can be done. As you've indicated, it is so massive and is so corrupt, you can't possibly change it.
You can't. Now, TransUnion is putting into a program to the creditors. It's an e-Oscar programming, and I've used this programming, and I've looked at it, and it's top-notch. Getting the creditor to utilize it, so when there's a problem with your credit and you ask it to be updated, they will have to, the creditor through this program, they'll have to subscribe to it. They will be forced, supposedly, to put the accurate information in there and report it back to the Bureau in a timely manner. They're just putting this into process, so I'm going to be really curious over the next few months, maybe 12 months, to see how it really affects this epidemic that's been going on with bad credit data.
Well, here's the deal. For $20, for $19.97, one time only, you can go to ScoreNavigator.com. You can sign up. You can find out what your score is, where the problems are, how to correct those problems, and get your credit score increased and eliminate a lot of the inaccuracies that make up your credit score. I mean, that's the bottom line. You only have to do this once. You don't have to, this isn't $19.97 a month forevermore. It's one time. And if you really have major problems, you have a sister company that takes care of that. Tell us about that.
Yes, that's called CreditDNA.us, and that's a full-fledged credit management company, and that's set up for short-term, middle-term, and long-term. That's a 3-month, a 6-month, or 12-month program where they will work with you on not only helping you to manage and to get data updated for you with the 3 bureaus, but what they'll also do is they'll give you that educational process on how to maximize and maintain a highest credit level for you and keep things alerted. And, you know, they just do a whole bunch of different things. But the main thing is you get a credit coach with them so you can call in and you can speak to people, and they'll be able to give you advice based upon years of experience on what steps to take in order to improve your life.
Man, I'll tell you what, it's the best $20 you possibly can spend. That's why I have Rusty on the show. I mean, when I talked with him and he explained to me, this is a one-time deal. It's not, you know, for now and evermore. You can do this once. And that's what most people do. It's a godsend to a lot of people. Go to ScoreNavigator.com, get the information, sign up for it. And Rusty, I thank you so very much for coming and sharing on health, wealth, and happiness.
Thank you, Gary. Bye-bye.
When credit scoring was introduced into the marketplace in the mid-'90s, who really knew the impact it would have on our lives today? The 3-digit number determines the rate of financing we get on our home and auto loans, insurance rates, and even employment. But do you know how your credit score is calculated, and is it accurate? Do you know what to do to raise your credit score or change errors in your credit report? ScoreNavigator.com at just $19.95 a month not only gives you the most accurate credit score in the industry, it will tell you how to increase your credit score. Listen to information about you and your credit on the 4th Wednesday of the month from 1 to 1:30 right here on Health, Wealth, and Happiness.
Heart disease, joint pain, allergies, eye care. The list of health needs we're faced with goes on and on. But it's comforting to know there is one healthcare practice in the Midlands with the expertise to take complete care of you. University Specialty Clinics. Only at University Specialty Clinics will you find a team of 200 doctors who are expert physicians and world-class medical educators. Whether you need a simple physical exam or need complete complex medical treatment, you can trust the doctors at University Specialty Clinics to take special care of you for life. Call 255-3400 for an appointment. That number again, 255-3400. University Specialty Clinics is owned and operated by the University of South Carolina School of Medicine, where we practice what we teach.
Our policy is taking care of South Carolina. Leon Jones Insurance. We're from South Carolina like you. Neighbors and friends through and through. Our policy is taking the time to give you the service you expect to find. Our policy is taking care of South Carolina. Leon Jones Insurance.
With locations in Columbia and Batesburg, Leesville, call 790-5600. That's 790-5600 for a quote. We are back, and joining us via the phone, as he does every Wednesday at this time, is Don Schaefer, travel expert. And if you look at the calendar, the date today is Wednesday, September the 25th, which means that 3 months from this very day is Christmas. However, holiday airfares will be going up soon. How soon? Well, a lot sooner than you think. According to USA Today, in their paper was an article called Airfares Will Be Going Up in About 3 Weeks. Don?
Well, let me tell you, Gary, this is an interesting thing, but actually the fares will not change. But let me tell you what happens. The airlines have about 20 different categories of airfares. They call them classes of airfares. And the cheapest seats that you can get on an aircraft, like, for example, right now, I'm going to be talking in a minute about airfares to New York. You can fly from Charlotte to New York for $195.
That's round trip.
Yeah, round trip. $195 round trip from Charlotte to New York City. It's about $239 from CAE, the Columbia Airport, which stops in Charlotte on the way, as you know. But nonstop from Charlotte to New York would be $195. However, if you, for example, let's take Delta Airlines, the cheap seats, those $195 seats, there may be only 6 or 8 of those on an aircraft. They have, Delta puts all of their inexpensive leader price seats in what they call T, as in Tom, or U, as in under, as they're either in T or U class. And so what happens if those 6 or 8 seats in T class sell out, you go to the next category, which is higher. And there are different restrictions on each category. So what happens is the airfares don't change, they don't go up, but all of the cheap seats get sold. Does that make sense?
I got you. Okay.
Okay, so the cheap seats get sold, so the next category up is higher, and by the time you get close to Thanksgiving, the only seats that are left are non-refundable, I mean not non-refundable, but refundable tickets, which are very expensive. If they're going to give you your money back, you have to really pay through the nose. And so they're refundable tickets that you purchase in 7 days or less, and that's all that's left the week before Thanksgiving. They don't require any advance purchase. They're what are called maybe walk-up fares. They are refundable tickets, and so there are almost no restrictions on them, and they're 3 or 4 times the price. So that $195 ticket from Charlotte to New York all of a sudden becomes a $600 ticket. And so it appears that the prices have gone up, but what I'm saying is that the inexpensive categories are already sold.
So what I'm hearing you say is that if you board a plane out of Charlotte flying to New York City, and it's got 200 seats of availability aboard that plane, you may have, of the 200 passengers, 8 or 10 different prices that people paid for tickets going in the same plane to the same place.
Oh, absolutely. That's absolutely the case. There are like 4 categories that cover first class and business class. But just do the math. If you're in a T, as in Tom, or U, as in under, class seat, then there are 20 categories ahead of you.
Wow.
Right? So there, in the coach section, there may be 15 different categories So the guy sitting next to you may pay $195, and you may be paying $600, and you may be sitting in the middle. You know, so you don't.
Yeah.
So you don't even get a break there. But that's what happens is when holidays come, the inexpensive seats are sold immediately. So I'm telling you, if you are planning to fly somewhere for Thanksgiving, you better get on the stick, because your problem is going to be availability, and certainly in availability of the less expensive class of seats. And that may not make sense to anybody else, but it makes sense to the airlines. And what they want to do is sell those expensive seats, where you just walk up and say, you know, I'd like to go to Charlotte today, or I'd like to go from Charlotte to New York today. Well, that's going to really cost you. It's going to cost you maybe $1,000, as opposed to if you go 3 weeks from today and you have that 3-week advance purchase, and not all of the cheap seats are sold out. So what happens on holidays is the cheap seats go first. So you got to get in there early. I mean, if you want to fly around Thanksgiving, all of the inexpensive seats are gone for the day before Thanksgiving and the Sunday after Thanksgiving. Sunday after Thanksgiving is the busiest flying day of the entire year in the United States. So don't go anywhere the Sunday after Thanksgiving. The cheap seats are gone. So you either want to fly. If you're going for Thanksgiving, you want to go, they say, on like the Monday or the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and you want to come back like the day after Thanksgiving on Friday. Otherwise, it's going to be really expensive.
Or, and this is a consideration for you to think about. Probably the cheapest ticket you can get at Thanksgiving and or Christmas is to fly on Thanksgiving Day or Christmas Day.
That's true. That's true. On the day of the holiday, that's generally true. It's not true of New Year's, oddly enough. A lot of people apparently like to fly on New Year's Day, so the cheap seats go quickly. But the reason you need to get your plans made well in advance for a holiday is because the cheap seats go first, logically. And there are only 6 to 10 of them on any given flight. So you've got to purchase them right away, because somebody else is going to get them before you do if you don't. So if you're planning to go anywhere for the holidays, you better make a decision really quickly. Deciding a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving that you'd like to fly somewhere is folly. It's just not going to work.
And if you think that's ridiculous, I suggest this. You go into Sears or you go into Walmart and you look at the number of Christmas trees that are already up and decorated right now, this very day. That would be correct. I know.
That's
3 months out, I understand. I know what I just said. You might say, that's ludicrous. It is, but they're up.
Well, the airlines aren't going to add planes.
No, they're not. As a matter of fact, good point. They cut back the number of flights. See, they make it so that they have profit. They cut down the number of flights so that they make more of a profit. There are fewer seats.
Well, they can't make any money on an empty seat. So if there are empty seats, then they cut back on the inventory. And the way you cut back on the inventory is you cut the number of planes that are flying. And they do that until every flight is full. And that's basically what's been happening for the last year. All of the flights wind up being full. And you've flown, Gary. You know that that's the case.
Oh, absolutely. And it
didn't used to be that way.
No.
Before 9/11, it wasn't that way at all. But these days, every flight is full, and they're going to keep the inventory at a place where the flights will always be full, because it's not profitable for them to fly a plane with empty seats.
And then
there's another
just
sale I wanted to tell you about, Gary.
Yeah.
And that is Viking River Cruises has 2-for-1 sale, and this is for this fall. And these are river cruises. And first of all, we've talked about this before. In fact, some of your listeners have booked Viking River cruises after hearing us talk about it. But these cruises include shore excursions in the price. They include wine with lunch and dinner. So, if you're on an ocean voyage and you want a bottle of wine, it's going to cost you anywhere from $30 to $50 per bottle. But you can have all the wine you want on a Viking River cruise with lunch or dinner, and it's included in the price of the cruise. Also, you're talking about five-star deluxe gourmet meals. You're talking about ships with only 200 passengers on board, so maybe 100 cabins, and they're bigger than they are on most of the ocean liners. The service is primo, and as I said, there's a shore excursion every day, and so river cruise is a luxury cruise. Well, there are some 7- and 8-day cruises available through Viking this fall. One called the Romantic Danube that goes from Budapest to Nuremberg, Germany, and stops in Vienna and a number of other places. And, of course, you're seeing castles and all kinds of scenery, monasteries and stuff like that as you go along the way. There's another similar one to that called the Danube Waltz, which also goes to Budapest, but it goes from Passau, and it includes Salzburg and Bratislava as well as Vienna. And there's another one called the Rhine Getaway. It's an 8-day cruise that goes from Amsterdam to Basel in Switzerland and includes Strasbourg and Heidelberg and a number of great places. But all of these cruises normally are selling for somewhere, excuse me, I'm all choked up. They usually are selling from $500 to $5,500 per person, and they're now selling for about $2,500 to $2,800 per person.
Wow.
For this fall. And here's the thing: they want to get these. Apparently, some people had some cancellations, but they want to get you on board so badly they'll fly you free from New York City.
Oh my!
Free.
Wow!
Free air. So you get the cruise and you get the air for free, and you can get to New York, as I said, from Charlotte for $195. If it were me, I would also spend a few days in New York. I can get you at the Jolly Hotel on Madison Avenue and 38th Street. Very nice, towering hotel. $169 a night. That's an unbelievable deal for New York City. You could see some Broadway shows like the Book of Mormon, the Jersey Boys, the Phantom of the Opera, Lion King, Wicked. They're all playing on Broadway right now. That's what I like to do. And then get that free flight over to Europe. And what a trip. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And the one thing I want to tell you about this is I checked the Viking River website, and I couldn't find the sale on the website. So contact your travel agent, because what happens is quite often cruise lines will give special deals to various travel agencies because they do a lot of business with them. And if your local travel agent can't get you this 2-for-1 deal with the free airfare from New York, you can call the travel agency that I represent on my radio show. It's Columbus Travel, and their phone number is 800-373-3328. A couple of your listeners called that travel agency and got a great deal on Viking River earlier. So if anybody else wants to call, it's 800-373-3328, Gary.
Don,